Today, we shall be talking about appraisal issues. The focus for today's lecture is to look at appraisal issues. This means project appraisal. The concept itself is important before you take consideration of running any type of project. You should consider about project appraisal issues. There are two directions that you will have to consider. Direction number one is to look whether this project is going to be a profitable project. Another aspect, this project is going to be a non-profit making project. So those two aspects demand you to have a choice to appraise your project. So in this section, in this discussion for today, we have to discuss on the key aspects of appraisal issues that any project planner must undertake. And when we say about any type of project planner will have to undertake, it means we are looking at those key steps deliverable within appraisal issues. Now, many people consider appraisal issues as not necessary in their project. When you run a project like that, are likely to be failing. You may undertake a project without consideration of appraisal issues, but at the end of the day, you'll find yourself collapsing because you never undertake those dimensions of project appraisal. When we consider about a project as appraisal, this is where you have to make a decision whether to run a project or not to run a project. Now, if you know you have to make a choice, you should undertake a project or you should not undertake a project, then you have to come across with project appraisal issues. And here is where we are. Now, looking at this subject, you have to come to a point where you say you will run this project or you will not run this project. Which criteria you will have to make into consideration whether you should run or you should not run, or you find it's going to be a wastage of time, then you have to consider about appraisal issues. And many people, many projects, many politicians, they don't want it to take into consideration. That's why those projects that are run under political motive are likely to be failing in the future. So from professional point of view, before you commit large sum of money, then you have to appraise your projects. Sometimes it's not viable from political point of view, but it is viable from professional point of view. The professional have to consider, they have to take into consideration the project appraisal issues. You will have to make a decision. You will have to make a decision whether to run a project or not to run a project. You'll have to make a decision. You'll have to make a decision because there is a point you will find yourself, you're going to commit billions of money to buy machines. You're going to commit billions of money to maybe to invest in a particular project. You're going to commit billions of money to construct maybe a school, to construct a building, to construct a bridge. So take time to appraise your project. You have to assess. You have to be serious. You have to take your time. You have to assess all the scenario. The scenario should be under your control so that when it comes to advising people, advising other key decision makers, then you have taken all those aspects. You cannot just go and construct a school without appraising it. You cannot just go and maybe construct a bridge without appraising it. We need to appraise, even if it is a community-based project, it must be appraised. Now, let's look at the general overview of the so-called project appraisal. Now, when we say the general overview, the key aspects that contain the project appraisal issues. You should never run a project without these considerations. You have to take into consideration the key aspects. And these aspects we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss these aspects. But let me say this: you are going to see when you are talking about appraising a project, it means you have to come to the point where you assess your project. Is it going to be viable from the organization point of view? Is it going to be viable for us to implement? Is it going to be viable before we commit large sum of money? Because remember one thing, if you commit large sum of money, then without appraising, it will be a disaster for you. There is no reverse. Once you have committed, there's no reverse. Is it viable for you to go to the bank and borrow money to implement the project? Is it viable or is not viable? Then all these aspects need to be considered when you are talking about project appraisal issues. This takes into consideration when you, as I said earlier, when you are running a profit making, you will consider about appraisal issues. When you are running a non-profit making, then you have to take into consideration also the point of appraising a non-profit making. Even if it is orphanage, you are coming up with supporting the orphanage project. So that project by itself, you have to appraise from that point of view and say it is viable from the community point of view, it is viable from the public point of view. Even if you want to construct a road, constructing road, you have to appraise. So the key aspects for appraisal. Many people, when they think about appraising, they only focus at the capital budgeting point of view. But appraisal issue, it is going beyond the capital budgeting. And the capital budgeting, it is the elements that is within the so-called project appraisal issues. And from many authors, if you go around, you read different books, you will find that when they are talking about appraisal issues, they're mainly focusing at the capital budgeting concept. But with us, as professionals for projects, we need to clearly go beyond that point of capital budgeting. Now, what are the key elements that you will need to consider when you talk about a capital? When you talk about project appraisal issues, what are the key elements you need to consider as a professional? As a professional, you will need to consider the following key points. Number one, you will need to consider the project from social point of view. And this aspect, we will call it social appraisal issues. with the social appraisal issues, you will need to appraise your project from the society point of view. Meaning, how is this project going to help the society? How is this project going to bring about the change, the benefits that are going to be incurred in the society? Those are going to be the focus. How is it going to bring impacts? Who are the key stakeholders? So you will need to analyze your key stakeholders and put them together, and it is where you know how many are going to benefit and who are the key stakeholders. You define them. If you know this is the number of people that are going to benefit out of this project, then you clearly point out those benefits. What are the impact that is going to be generated from the society point of view? So you describe the society much, but you link with those numbers, statistics that bring about the impacts to which stakeholders that are going to be benefiting from this one, and which impact they will get. Maybe there's going to be a change in knowledge. Maybe there's going to be a change in attitude. Maybe, and so many things that you will have to take into consideration when you are running your project. The aspects of the society, you appraise the society, you appraise based on the key stakeholders, because those are key stakeholders, you will have to define them from the society point of view, and they can be classified from direct stakeholders and indirect stakeholders. So you will have to describe them, and also you will have to measure their strength. You will have to define the strength of each stakeholders in your aspects, and that you will be appraising the project from the society point of view. That is social appraisal. So that is the section for any project planner to take into consideration when running a project, when they are appraising a project. Now, we go to another aspect. Another aspect, this is very common, financial appraisal. Financial appraisal, it takes into consideration of appraising the project from the financial point of view. And remember one thing, when you talk about financial appraisal, you'll be focusing the key aspects of the cost, the benefits, the interest rates. Now, here it is where you will need to be very sensitive. Depending on the direction of your project, if project is towards profit making, then you'll have to consider the following key aspects. Now here, not all projects will undertake this. If you are going to borrow money from financial institution to run the projects, then you will have to use these criteria. One of the aspects you will have when we are running a project based from the financial appraisal, you will have to consider the time value of money. If it is a profitable making project, the time value of money, the interest rates, how much is the interest rates that's going to be incurred during the period, because those are the things that you'll have to consider. Now, under these aspects, what you will see, you will apply, you will have series of options to do the project, to appraise the project from the social from appraisal, financial appraisal point of view. But what you will need to do is You select one, so you can pick maybe the following. You can have the net present value as as approach to appraise your project. You can take the internal rate of return. Um, you can also take the payback period. You can also take the accounting rate of return. Okay, you can also take the so-called profitability index. You can also take so many the cost-benefit ratios, so many that you may undertake. But those ones, these are some key elements that will be discussed when we shall be talking about the capital budgeting. So from here, from financial point of view, you will analyze the key costs for the project. You will analyze them and they'll also take into consideration the time value of money, especially if it is a profit-making project and you expect to borrow money from financial institutions or any other government, then you have to make sure you demonstrate by considering the so-called interest rate, because at one particular time you'll have to borrow the money, they will charge you interest rates. So when you pay, you'll pay the principal plus the interest rates. So which options? So many manager, many planners, many project planners, you'll find them using the so-called the net present value, because the net present value, it takes into consideration the time value of money, and also it can demonstrate on how the welfare of the shareholders can be maximized. Therefore, it is important. You can also apply the internal rate of return, but again, it is not very common as compared to net present value. Net present value, many companies apply. More than 75% apply the net present value. So the payback period, the only problem that it has is this: it has no elements of interest rates. That's the weakness of the payback period. So you may use, depending on your option, but you are not taking into consideration the time value of money. Therefore, it's not good for you to use, especially when it comes to large sum of money. It might be dangerous for you to apply as project management. So profitability index, you can also use, you could, depending on the option, because it is based on the profit that's going to be generated during a period of time. So you can apply. So you can apply, but many people apply the net present value as a way to determine the project viability. So you can accept, you can come to the point you accept the project or you reject a project. So for that way, if you want to know much, you can go deeper and read about capital budgeting as analyzed by so many authors, and it will give you clear pictures plus the formulas to be applied. And also you may refer the lecture, the next lecture on capital budgeting. It is also going to be helpful for you, and you can refer that one. You can take down some notes on capital budgeting. Another aspect, as an overview for project appraisal issues, is the economic appraisal issues. In here, you will have to analyze the project from the economic point of view. How many people are going to benefit from the project? How many people are going to be employed in the projects? So you explain how many people are going to be employed in the projects, and what will be the likely future consumption trend in the projects. These are something that the key aspects that you need to put under the economic appraisal. So you talk about unemployment, you will analyze the direct jobs that are going to be created, and also the indirect jobs that are going to be created during a particular period of time. You will need to analyze that one. That is also very important. And also you will need to analyze the tax that is going to be generated, the indirect tax and the direct tax related to the project. So you will have to analyze what type of tax. Maybe you will analyze the income tax, pay as you earn. How much is that going to be generated during a particular period of time, per month, per year, depending on the lifetime of the project. So all these, you will finally get the accumulated tax. And you will need also to explain about the corporate tax that's going to be paid to the government. So you justify economically your project. What are the key issues that you think at the end of the day your project is going to bring about? And that is very important for consideration. So many people run projects without knowing clearly, without putting it on paper, how much is the amount of tax that is expected to be generated and is going to be payable to the government. How much is that one? So many people, they don't take into consideration. So here, whether it is a profit making or a non-profit making, you need to demonstrate that kind of elements for employment generation, for tax, and also for future trends. Future trends talk about, maybe it is about your sales, how much is going to be your sales, future trend in terms of consumption, future trends in terms of consumption, how much is going to be consumed as related to. So you can use different model. If it is a huge project related to the sectoral analysis, then you can use a big project that will bring about projections. You can use different techniques for projections to analyze the trends in the future. That is also very important. I think you are aware with what is happening. Many people run projects without appraising it from the economic point of view. And that is where we find there is failure for so many projects, and even the other stakeholders cannot understand why this project is existing. So for us, from planning point of view, we need to analyze all those aspects from the economic appraisal. You appraise it from the economic point of view so that it can make sense and say this, it can be implemented. It can be implemented because economically that is how we are going to get from the economic point of view. So that is very important. So you will have to describe different techniques for projections. As I said, you can project the demand. You can also talk how much your project will bring about revenue in the country in terms of maybe exchange rates. If you are dealing with projects that's going to export some stuff, then you will have to explain those aspects of exchange rates. You will talk of inflation. How is that going to be linked with inflation? And key aspects of macroeconomic indicators. So you will have to put them here, especially for those bigger projects. When we talk about those bigger projects, maybe the standard gauge, all those kind of analysis will be there. And the Stigler's gauge, all these kind of analysis will be there. So it's important for a serious project planner to take into consideration these key aspects within the projects to appraise the economy. And that is what we mean by economic appraisal. So this will be the section for you to analyze the issue of, as I said, employment creation, the tax analysis. You will talk about exchange rates, you talk about inflation, and any other key economic variables that is considered to be important depending on the sector analysis and the project itself. How is that project being positioned to be run in the future? So you will be looking at that. Now, when you have already considered that one, you will go to another section. And this section, you will talk about gender appraisal. You can analyze your project from the gender point of view. You will analyze the equity issues that is going to be generated, especially when you are going to borrow money from the international institutions. So the gender analysis becomes important. How is the role of women going to be promoted in the project? How many women will take position to run the project, from which position they will have to hold at the end of the day. So all these kind of aspects will be analyzed, and how children are going to benefit from this project. So the gender aspects will describe the analysis regarding the gender issues, but with the numbers and not with the too much analysis. But you will have to analyze and support with the number. If it is 100, you will say 100. If it is 20, you will say 20. And you see, these are the kind of things that we expect at the end of the day you will have when you talk about gender appraisal issues. And another aspects of project appraisal issues, what is that? We will have to consider. Another is what we call it institutional appraisal. Under institutional appraisal, as a section for appraising projects, you will have to analyze the key personnel who are in the projects, the key people who are currently working in your projects, or the key people who are going to be the competent people to run the project. Here, you describe the competency of your organization, the competence of your organization. Do you have enough competency to run the project? You will say yes, because we have engineers. The engineers, they have these type of skills. At the end of the day, those skills, they can perform, they can bring about a project without any doubt. So if you consider a project from institutional issues, you will talk about those key personnel that you have in terms of their competency, and also you describe the similarities of the institution to run similar projects. You see, so here you describe the context of the institution to run similar projects or related projects in the same context or in a different context. So if you have such competence, you describe, but the key point for you to describe, you link with the personnel that you have currently and those that you expect to employ, you will have to analyze them. So you defend, you say, we have these kind of competency that we find ourselves, we are capable of running a project. So you will have to analyze it much from that point of view. Now, we also say in the same context of institutional, you will talk about whether do you have the finance people who can control the issue of finance. You have the accounting system. You have the governance structure. All this needs to be defined when you are talking about the institutional capacity of running projects, because now you're going to use billions of money. So you will need to defend it from the appraisal economic, from institution point of view. Institution point of view, this is what we are talking about right here. Now, another aspect, apart from the institutional appraisal, you will talk of the technical appraisal. The technical appraisal, this you describe the type of technology that is going to be applied in a project. You will talk about that. You will find it is important for you to describe the projects in terms of the technicality. Is there technicality issues going to be embodied inside? If there's going to be some technical issues, then you describe it properly. Then you will find yourself having good analysis. You will talk about whether you will apply modern technology. Are you going to import the technology from outside, or you're not going to import technology from outside? What about if you are using the local technology? Do you have different options apart from those technology that you think you can use? You will have to define this one. And what about the sustainability of the technology itself? If you are using imported technology, make sure you describe the machines, the quality of the machines, the components itself, plus what type of people who will be employed to do the maintenance in the technical issues. When it comes to technical issues, are you going to import the personnel from outside to repair the machines? How much is that going to cost you the project? Or you have the internal capacity, or you are going to use other experts nearby who will come and run the project. This is also very important when you describe it. So you describe the competency of the technical team and their qualifications and everything that is within the context of technical appraisal. And if you have the alternative technology thereafter, describe that here we will use the alternative technology in order to implement this. Or if you're using the local technology, describe the local technology versus the imported one. But you must describe plus the size of the machines and the quality of the machines must be defined here very clearly, so that at the end of the day, you analyze all those key aspects of the technical appraisal issues. Now, this is just an overview. We also have another section of project appraisal, and this section we call it environmental appraisal. When we talk about environmental appraisal, we have to explain the projects from the environmental point of view. Is it going to destruct our environment? Is it going to add more value to environmental protection? What type of change is it going to add at the end of the day? So you will have to find yourself that you have environmental appraisal. Do you have permission? Do you have permission to pollute? Maybe you are dealing with the projects that is related with the mining projects. If it is a mining project, you need to know you get the permission, you get the permission to pollute. And in Tanzania, for example, you will get permission to pollute from NEMKI. And this will be based from the point that you have conducted the so-called environmental impact assessment. When environmental impact assessment has been conducted, then it is where you attach in your report by saying we have conducted the environmental impact analysis, and therefore we have all the permission to pollute. This is also attached in the annexed number. So the environmental impact analysis will be important for you to undertake so that you can defend the appraisal issues at the end of the day when we talk about environmental appraisal. Now, for bigger projects, maybe it might be a mining project. road construction project, Stigler's gauge, maybe standard gauge, maybe power plants. When you are setting those bigger projects, then you need to conduct the environmental impact analysis, and get the permission. At the end of the day, you will get permission. So this section will have to describe much about the impact. Some projects have no huge impact to environment. Then describe that this project will bring no harm to environment, but it will add some value. Like for school projects, you think at the end of the day, what are the added value? You will have some subjects to teach about environmental protection. You will plant a tree and so many issues related to environmental appraisal issues. Now, this will be about environmental appraisal issues. But we also have another section that is also very important. You can describe your project from political point of view. How is that going to be? So you assess the political environment to which the project is going to be implemented. Is it acceptable from the political point of view? Is it not acceptable from the political point of view? So for most of the time, we say people, they must be capable of looking at the ruling party policies of ruling parties prevailing at that time. Then they have to take that component and analyze, yes, it is politically acceptable to run this project because it is within the policy context of the ruling party. Then you can say, you can run. All this, you want your project to be acceptable from the political point of view. So this is very important. As I have said earlier, when talking about projects, we have different sections. One of the section is to look at the social appraisal, look at financial appraisal, look at the economic appraisal, look at the gender appraisal, look at the political appraisal, look at the environmental appraisal. These are among the important things that you'll find yourself having at the end of the day. And I think if you have any question, you can contact me through my mobile number, as I have given you earlier in my personal contact. You may contact me. You may also contact me through my email. My email is moitetekairo at gmail.com. You may contact me if you have any issue related to project appraisal. We can discuss, we can understand how things can go beyond that one. Because all this, we want to help our society, we want to help our nation, to make sure our nation grow, thereby looking at these key aspects. Never run a project without appraisal. But again, the last point as part of you to examine when you are running a project is the sustainability. Sustainability is also another element that you'll have to talk about here. How is this project going to be sustainable, or is not going to be sustainable? And if what will happen at the end of the day when the donors pulls out? Are you going to sustain yourself? Which strategy are in place to sustain? What is your future sustainability sources of revenue that will make sure you sustain yourself? And therefore, this is the sustainability issues. It is very important for you to consider when running a project. I have tried to go so fast to get an overview, but next time again, we will go step by step to get deeper about the analysis on project appraisal issues. May I say thank you very much for listening for today. And I wish to see you next time when we meet again for another session. Thank you.